Well, let's get down to our first timed event on the day as we get ready for a little steer wrestling, what the Cowboys like to call bulldogging.
One thing's for sure in the steer wrestling, if you do well, you're going to get dirty. We're going to wrestle the large farm animals. We're going to try and throw them on the ground, and we've got 10 of the world's best here today. There's the order for you right now that we're looking at, a good mix of American and Canadian cowboys. Ready to ride.
Well, Ryan Conway, one of a couple of brothers from down there at Browning, Montana, is going to be our first man, as you can see in the steer wrestling. And, he's been having some success up here, as both of the Conway boys have, actually. So Ryan going to be the first man. Now, in this event, of course, it's 2 cowboys, 2 horses, 1 steer, and a barrier rope. So there's 6 variables in all. If you want to do well in this event, you have to do well in all 6 of those areas. You can't really make any mistakes, especially in an event where our leaders coming in, we're at 3 and 7. They're going to have to be fast here in the short round.
Oh, I know. You love to watch the Conway boys. You can tell that these cowboys are ranch raised. They feel very comfortable on a horse. And part of steer wrestling is being able to judge the movement of the cattle. How close you have to be, how close your hazer has to be. And that plays a lot into it. If you're ranch raised, if you do this every day, maybe it gives you a bit of an advantage there.
Well, and we talk about the score when we talk about this event and all of our timed events. Let's talk a little bit about that score. The distance between that cowboy and that barrier rope is so important, and how quickly you charge that barrier rope.
Sometimes we think that the horse reacts to the gate, and that's quite the opposite. The cowboys have trained the horse to react to the cowboy's cues. If that horse jumps at the gate, the cowboy's probably going to break the barrier or break the score to get 10 seconds added to our total running time. Now, Ryan comes in with 4.5 seconds. He's 0.8 of a second away from our leader. He's outside with Lee Graves on the hazing side. Good run here. Look at that.
Boy, nice. I tell you, that is nice. That is nice. Now, here again, we're going to add to that 4 and 5 that he started with, a 3 and 7. That's one of the fastest times of the entire weekend. Nice job by the cowboy right there. Oh, nice work.
Well, by my calculations, that gives him 8.2 on 2, and I don't know, that equals our fastest time of the rodeo. That's going to be tough for the other cowboys to get by. Nice job.
When you're the first guy, what you want to do is put a little pressure on those guys, maybe get them charging that line a little bit, maybe breaking some barriers, and you can come out from the bottom hole, which is where he is, maybe win the whole darn shooting match.
Well, in other words, he did what he needed to do. That's right. I agree with you.
Exactly right.
Justin Miller, the pride and joy of Cessford, Alberta. Now, he's a rookie in professional rodeo. And this rookie cowboy's jumped up to 6th in the standings of the steer wrestling. Now, the first time we saw him this year was at Wainwright. Now, I've been watching this cowboy in semi-professional rodeo. We're going to hear a lot from Justin Miller. This cowboy's got all the tools, and he really knows how to handle steers.
He done bulldog like a rookie, that's for darn sure, in his first year. But, boy, you'd think he's a veteran. He's got all that veteran savvy and all kinds of ability and athleticism. And you watch him right there. That's going to be quick. That's going to be very quick. And he, of course, came in here at 4 and 4, just 1/10 of a second faster than Conway. Let's see how quick he is here.
Let's see how close he was to that barrier. Oh, boy.
Well, we just talked about that barrier just a moment ago, and, I love a Mississippi gambler who goes after everything. He was 3 and 3 on the clock, but broke that barrier, goes to 13 and 3. That's a tough break for a good cowboy.
Oh, he was pushing it, but he had to do that today. Inside, Strauss Milan getting ready. This is my guy in the order today, David. He's our top Canadian in the world standings right now.
Well, just having a tremendous season, and you look at the size of this big fella. He is just so good. There's 3 of those Milan brothers, and a few years ago when they were all at peak form, I added up the poundage. There was 710 pounds distributed between the 3 brothers, but he's 7th in the world. He's a $100,000 champion at the Calgary Stampede a couple of years ago. Not a bad pick by you, by the way.
World champion steer wrestling horse underneath him. That's Jesse from Lee Graves, and we're out a little too far, I think. Whoa.
Well, this isn't going away. Look at that upper body strength right there, but might not have had the best steer out of the pen. And, the luck of the draw, every bit as important in the timed events as it is in the riding events. He's in at 7 and 2 this time around to go with his earlier 4 and 4.
That steer got a bit of a jump on him. You want to talk about sharp horns? Watch this. This steer is going to stick a horn right in his midriff, and watch the shirt when he gets up. Oh, we're not going to see it. There it is. Yeah. Yeah, that's a $70 shirt gone right there.
Yeah. Oh, man. All right, we're going to Craig Weisgerber of Panoka Big, strong guy, and this tends to be an event that attracts that particular type of gentleman. These guys are tough, but Craig Weisgerber has been a Canadian Finals rodeo qualifier and an outstanding cowboy in my books.
Oh, yeah, he is cool today. This cowboy knows that we've got to jump on out, and we have got to hurry today. But he has a bit of an advantage coming on in here. He was 4 seconds flat. He had a half-second advantage over our leader thus far, Ryan Conway. So, in other words, he can be a half a second longer. He can go to 4-2 and still tie for the lead. But I don't think tying's on his mind right now.
I don't think so either, but let's watch what he does. I think actually he did come in at 4-2, did Weisgerber. So let's see what he's able to do here. Something down in that 4-second range would sit real well with him, and if he was able to equal Ryan Conway's 3-7, that'd be even better.
The idea is to squeeze the steer between the two horses, and you have to do that in your approach on the way up. The thing that scares you a little bit is when there's a steer that comes your way, in other words, towards the bulldogging horse. It gives you a sick feeling if you don't have room to drop your body down in there. If you go over top of that steer, you're probably going to bounce once off the top of the steer and then go in underneath the hazing horse. And that could mean some type of an injury. And at this point in the year, these cowboys don't want to risk that.
And, of course, that second cowboy that we talk about, the hazer, his job really to keep that steer running straight and in towards that cowboy to give that steer wrestler the opportunity to get down, twist him to the ground, all 4 feet pointing the same way. That left elbow to the nose, once you get him down and get him stopped, that's really the key.
It should take us longer to describe what's going on than it does for the cowboy to do it. Now, that's a long reach that didn't work. Ouch.
Oh, man, we talk about it. And just not able to get aligned with that steer, and he came down awfully hard. And when you're that big and you land that hard, it can hurt, and it did.
This steer's going to move away. Watch the steer change leads right about here. Switches to that right lead and then stops a little bit. Oh, there'll be sore spots under those Wranglers tomorrow, David.
Yeah, that's a tough break for Craig Weisgerber. I didn't like to see that one little bit. Well, Morgan Grant, we've been talking about him on our Road to the CFR telecast because he has had the hot hand.
Oh, I tell you what, tie-down roping or steer wrestling, it doesn't matter what you need him to do. In fact, a couple of weeks ago, he won a rodeo, won the tie-down roping, won the steer wrestling too. That was his first time winning 2 events, but it's not going to be his last time. This is a good kid. He's got youth on his side. We don't see a whole lot of cowboys from Ontario, but this is a great timed event cowboy right here.
Well, and that was one of our Road to the CFR telecasts that you alluded to, where he won at Medicine Hat, both the steer wrestling and the tie-down roping. And he is all cowboy all the time. And I think this is another guy who has Canadian champion written all over him.
And he's hungry. He's young and he's hungry, and he wants to establish a reputation, and there should be no reason why he's not a Canadian champion. Now, the steer wrestling horses have to have a lot of speed. When you ask the cowboys about who's going to win the bulldogging, they'll say probably the first cowboy to the steer. This little bay horse of Morgan's can run. There's a good stop and a set. All right. Good as he could do on that steer.
Now, Morgan came in at 4-3, and he's in at 4 seconds flat, so give him 8-3, just a 1/10 of a second off the lead that Ryan Conway established a moment ago. So he's 8-3 on 2 and in second spot by just a 1/10 of a second. But you talked about it, just how good he is. Of course, he's the number 1 man in our high point standings. This isn't going to hurt him at all.
Chance Butterfield, I think, should be our next cowboy. Pride and joy of Pinoca. Chance is up there in the Canadian standings, and now from last place up on into 10th in the Canadian standings. There really isn't a whole lot of money difference, as there is some years. In other words, the competition this year in the steer wrestling has been very, very tight.
Well, he's one of our college-educated cowboys. He attended Texas Tech, got a business degree. This is a very, very sharp young cowboy, and of course, the Texas Tech Red Raiders, he was one of them, and he's proud to be up here in Canada right now and maybe challenging for a berth at the Canadian Finals Rodeo, where there have been a whole lot of Butterfields over the years.
You bet. It's in the genes. This is a good start. Steer was a little slow to get that bottom hind leg going out of there, and our field flag judge will have seen that. That might be an extra 1/10 of a second or 2.
I think
3-6, but a problem?
I see a yellow flag. I'm not
boy.
sure. I thought I detected a yellow flag right there. Yeah, he did break that barrier. We just got it confirmed. What a tough break. So 3-6, going to become 13-6, take him out of the hunt.
He was pumped up today. He wanted to make sure that he got a good start on that steer, and he did. And that's what you need to do. If you're not breaking barriers, you're not trying hard enough. And it is a Money Monday here at Strathmore.
Well, and a guy who's won a whole bunch of money over the years is a guy by the name of Lee Graves, a couple of times world titleist, 5 times Canadian champion. Of course, he rides the great horse Jesse, and he's kind of on the comeback trail. He's battled some injuries over the last little while, but he's back. His form is perfect. He is right back on top of his game, and when he is, as I suggested earlier, when I picked him to win this event, he's ready.
You bet. The 2-time world champion steer wrestling horse. This is a horse that's a little like a fast race car. He's got a very fine handle on him, but just a ton of speed. Outside, look at this. We're down inside. Come around in a hurry. There we are.
Just took him a little bit longer than he wanted to kind of get set up with that steer to be able to apply that leverage. So he's in at 4 and 5. We're not going to see that one again, but I'll tell you what, he just had a little bit of difficulty kind of getting sorted out with the steer because, of course, your body position when you go to apply that leverage is so important, Doug.
It looked to me like he gave that steer a little bit more air, a little bit more of a move before he rode on out of there. He wanted to be sure about that barrier today.
Well, let's go now to Sean Santucci of Prineville, Oregon, 27-year-old cowboy who right now sits 15th in the world standings. So, of course, he's vying for one of those coveted positions in Las Vegas come December. So let's see if we can get him a little help right here in Strathmore.
Well, he and Brock Butterfield coming on in here tied for first and second. 3.7 second runs overall. That's our fastest run today as well. We'll change it up. That looks like Cody Cassidy down inside. Canadian champion one more time. National Finals Rodeo Cowboy. It's in the genes here as well, Dave.
Boy, you talk about the Cassidy family, that family dynasty. Dad, a many times Canadian champion. Brother Curtis and Cody, of course, has been a 3 times titleist. Maybe chased this one a little longer than he wanted to, but handles them rather well once he gets there.
That steer came his way just a little bit. You have to move your horse over. Took an extra couple tenths of a second. Handled him well. 4-6. 4-6 is the time. Add that to the 3 and 9. A little too long.
Yeah, 8 and 5, just a couple of tenths out of that lead. But I'll tell you what, that was a nice run, as we've come to expect from Cody Cassidy. He is just so solid, so consistent. And that consistency is something that we talk about. When you talk about champions and the great ones who can do it time after time, that consistency, you love watching those guys.
Exactly. Sean Santucci, here he comes. He was born in Winnemucca, Nevada, in the ranch country. Riding on in, and we can see our Wrangler officials doing up that automatic 10-second barrier down there right now. This cowboy will take his eyes off the steer wrestling horse, and he will zero in on that steer. The steers have to get a good start, have to have their feet in underneath them, and we're outside. This looks like a good one. Steer stops a little. There we are.
Whoa, man. I'll tell you what, you talked about the fact that he came in here at 3 and 7 plus 3 and 8. Talk about consistency. How about just a tenth of a second longer? And he is now our leader, Sean Santucci, Prineville, Oregon, at 7 and 5 on 2 and the lead. Boy, oh boy, that was slick. Got there. You know, everything worked well. The horse worked well, had a nice steer, and handled him so well when he got there.
That steer cleared the ground really well for him. Last guy to go, Brock Butterfield, Pinoca. Second of the Butterfield family here today.
Well,
Cousin.
And you talk about Brock, and he comes in here with a 3 and 7 as well. So now to win it, he's got to be 3 and 7 or faster, and he's going to get to this one quickly, but no. Oh, man, just overshot the target by just that tiny, tiny little bit right there. Brock Butterfield, no time. That is simply a tough break right there. No time for him. Well, that means that Sean Santucci, we talked about a guy sitting 15th in the world, and maybe improving his shot at a National Finals rodeo berth in Las Vegas. I'll tell you what, he did it right here today.